you doing, sir?
Wonderful. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks so much for speaking to me.
Oh, thanks for having me.
How are you doing?
Hanging in. It's things are starting to gear up promo wise, and so I'm trying to do that and then do final edits on the book after that. So it's like a weird bouncing around, you know?
I can imagine it's hard enough for me to kind of read two books at the same time, let alone even for you to be promoting one and then getting another
Yep,
one ready in the
exactly.
works. Congratulations, the book is fantastic. I loved it to bits. It's so
Thank
good.
you so
I mean,
much.
I think you knew that. I already loved your previous books, Fever House and The Devil by Name. They're fantastic. I mean,
Thank
the
you.
first thing I wanted to ask you is how did you decide to jump from this kind of the previous two books, the saga, which is kind of a of zombie tropes, and if you like, to dive into vampire tropes. What was the kind of the genesis behind jumping from zombie tropes to vampire tropes? And when you do, I mean, obviously, when you approach something that a trope that there's been so many different versions of that kind of trope, how do you approach it in a way that you want people to kind of go there expecting the vampire tropes they love, but also make sure that it's something different without going somewhere that people kind of don't really enjoy because they're so kind of they love the vampire trope so much, for example.
Yeah, I think that everything that I write is going to start from that kind of foundational stuff of gritty relationship based boots on the ground crime stuff. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or just not even crime, but just like a certain grittiness to it, because that's the stuff that I love to read and it interests me, and it's the stuff that I want to write. And so everything comes out of that wellspring. And with Coffin Moon, I got the Fever House deal. It was a two-book deal with Random House. And I think before that even started, I just felt such a vast relief that it was done and that I had landed an agent because I hadn't had an agent for quite a while.
Right.
And he was kind of prepping it and getting it ready to send out. And while that's all, you always got to have something on the back burner. You know what I mean? Because you just
So
kind of will lose your mind if you wait for news. Waiting for news in writing is just so glacial, And so I busted that the first draft of Coffin Moon out in like 7 weeks,
right.
uh, and it sucked. It kind of sucked.
Yeah,
It
I was watching another. Sorry to interrupt you, but I was watching another interview, and you said that pretty much all of your books, only about 10% of kind of the skeleton
it's
of your
exactly
books
true.
makes it into
Yep.
the final version. No.
Yeah, and it without giving spoilers away, the first draft started at a very like pivotal moment that later got kind of shunted to the back of the book as one of the
Right.
big things. And that's what I started with. And then it turned into this kind of like frenzied road trip thing, but the two main characters like they just met on the road and they weren't like friends or anything. And I
Mm.
found that as I was writing it, I was kind of um eventually got to the point where I was also writing The Devil by Name, and I was starting to insert parallels of like character parallels and things like that, and just being like, oh, these have to be different stories. And The Devil by Name in its way is a road trip story.
Yeah.
And so my agent got back to me, and she's just like, this is not working. Here are things that are working, but ultimately you gotta shift it up. And so it's like I do that. I just take tropes. Like the book after this is a witch book, you
Right.
know, and the book that I just started working on, you're the first to hear about it, and God only knows if I'll stick with it. But I think it's going to be a like a haunted house kind of
Right.
thing in its own weird way. And so I take those tropes and I just run with them.
Hmm.
They all come from that foundational bedrock of like crime and really close interpersonal relationships.
Hmm. No, I mean the reason I asked that is because there are very there's a lot of tropes, vampire tropes that people will be used to, but then there are certain things that you kind of flipped on the head. I was quite curious, was there anything going in that you specifically said, right, I do not want to use those tropes because they've been done to death?
Yeah.
Or was there anything that you specifically wanted to keep in there because it's just something that you love to read in vampire
Yeah, I mean,
books or
I
in movies?
love the notion of like vampires being invisible or being warped in some way and looking in the mirror and things like that. And the thing that I really wanted to drive home, that I don't think very few vampire things touch on. I think Richard Lang's Rovers and Andy Davidson's In the Valley of the Sun do really well, and that's that you have to be a fucking psychopath to survive for any length of time as a vampire, because its
Mhm.
entire basis is built upon murder. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And like
Yeah.
that you have to get very inured to that or perish, you know?
Mhm.
So that's a thing that I want to explore. But I don't think it's like, and it's like if you and I stay out, too late, like, oh, we're slightly tired the next day, but these folks die, you know? And so it's like reinforcing that idea that like vampirism is like, it really is a curse, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah,
and
I don't
just
know if have you seen a film called He Never Died with Henry Rollins?
what's that?
Have
Oh,
you?
I
I don't
did
know.
see that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, kind
yeah,
of. Yeah, those kind of things. Just, it was like it's like a curse, but at the same time, because he's lived so long, and it's just really, really well done. Kind of,
yeah,
it made me think of that a bit. Yeah.
yeah. And it's just like very few people could survive for any length of time as a vampire, and those who do, like, oh, watch out,
Mhm.
like look out. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Before I actually talk a little about the book itself, we can't not talk about two people who are huge promoters of your stuff, who are of course Stephen King and Joe Hill, which I'm sure everyone tells you in every interview. That must be so great, but at the same time, now that because they were huge promoters of Fever House and The Devil by Name, did you feel a huge amount of pressure this time round because you got that Stephen King, Joe Hill kind of
I'm so
label?
far ahead of the curve, man, as far as like any of that like promotional stuff, like Steve King, like he talked about Fever House like quite a few times, you know what I mean? And it's like I don't think I'm gonna top that again, you know?
Mhm.
And so and like Joe, like they both use their platforms to like really boost other authors like pretty
Yeah, sure.
regularly. And yeah, any attention that I get, it's so hard as a writer to get any kind of like attention at all. And so like whatever I get from anybody, I'm like lucky as hell, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, Joe Hill. I was reading Joe Hill the other day. He said that Coffin Moon is so fucking good. I wish I'd written it. This
Yeah,
thing is
I know.
ripped. So that's and then Stephen
Yeah,
King jumped straight on and said, "I'm about to read it. I'm just finishing something off."
yeah, it's crazy. It's very cool.
Oh yeah, that's crazy. No, it's brilliant. So I don't want to give too much away the story, of course, but I was really intrigued why you decided to set it in 1975. Was there any specific reason why? Was that just because that's kind of you love the 70s, like movies and books from the 70s, or was it specifically because you wanted to kind of keep mobile phones and technology out of the way? Was there any specific reason why you decided to set it back then?
Yeah, there's partly that and partly because in a kind of like hunting kind of revenge novel, like it simplifies things.
Yeah.
And you're given a different set of challenges, as far as like trying to track somebody down. And also like I am uh fascinated with the complicated nature of the Vietnam War personally. And um, yeah, and so just writing about veterans from that particular war, it holds a challenge to me that like I wanted to try to tackle. And that's the
Mhm.
thing about writing books, man. It's just like I will pick like five or six things that like hold my interest and then just glom them all together into some kind of working narrative. And so that was one of the things because you got to entertain yourself most of all, otherwise
Oh
it's
yeah, yeah. That'll
going to be
surprise
flat.
yourself, sure, yeah. hmm
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm quite curious. Obviously, this Vietnamese vet that you talk about is called Duane. Um, was that kind of the seed of the story? Was he the first thing you wanted to write about a Vietnam vet? Was that kind of the basis, or was it more the vampire trope? And then you decided to bring, like you said, that you brought quite a few things together. What came first to kind of
Yeah.
as the catalyst for
Honestly,
the story?
the first draft, um, the very first draft started with Dwayne, the main character, in a bathroom stall um, in like wherever, Idaho or Montana or whatever, and he's in this like bar and he has like one silver bullet left in this gun, and he goes out to talk to Johann, John Varley's thrall,
Hmm.
and to do this kind of showdown, which if you've read the book, that will eventually happen later on. And so that is really the seed, you know? And so like Fever House had a couple seeds, and that was where the seed started. And you have no idea what the hell is going to happen next, but if things are going well, dominoes start to fall. You know what I mean? And like I don't ever write the entire plot out or any of that shit. I'm just like flying
All right.
blind, you know?
Really?
And yeah, and
Hmm.
if things are going well, then the next thing and the next thing start to reveal itself. So
So when you sit down to write something, you don't kind of have a cork board on the wall and all these strings going from one note to another. No,
no,
no.
that's the fun thing is you just start to be like, oh, it'd be cool if this goes here, and then you get to do that interconnectedness and like how do we advance the plot and how do we tie all these things together? That's the like, haha, that's the shit that's fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But then when you send it to the editor, and then he's like, "This isn't working,"
Yeah, then they're like,
because you haven't
where
got
I don't
anything
see
planned
any
on
of
the
these
wall, how do you
threads.
kind of reverse
Yeah.
engineer things?
Right. It's like Charlie and It's Always Sunny, that meme of him with the string, you know what I mean? Like it makes sense in my head, you know?
Yeah,
Uh, but yeah, that's why you have a good editor, you know?
sure.
And they like consistently, like I've worked with Caitlin McKenna on 4 books now, and she has consistently improved the hell out of them every single time. So
Hmm. Brilliant. No, I mean, it must be great to have that kind of a safety net, someone that you can trust.
yeah,
Like you've
it's
worked with
so
a few
cool.
books.
It's
Mhm.
so cool.
Brilliant. Um, I mean, also the main guy. I don't want to give it any away, but the pretty main one of the protagonists is Duane, who's this Vietnamese vet. But obviously, the story is very much about revenge. And most of the pretty much all of the characters, they get out for revenge regardless of the outcome. They feel it's necessary. Whereas Duane, who's this Vietnamese vet, he's kind of he's the only one that's kind of hesitant about seeking revenge, even though he's been through war and all these different kind of this suffering. He's going through PTSD at the same time. Uh, what was it about the characters that you wanted him specifically to be the one that was kind of most hesitant about seeking revenge, and then all the other ones, even this very young character that we've got in the story, really couldn't care less about the consequences and just felt that it was right for them to seek revenge.
Right. Well, I
Did you
mean,
get what I mean?
for one, you know, the Julia, the young character, like I don't know how you were at 13, but like it was all emotion for me. You know what I mean? Like I was incapable of any kind of like forward thinking. Like it was all very much in the moment, you know? And I don't know, man. It's like if both of these characters are so hell bent on vengeance, it gets real cartoonish real fast, you
Right.
know? Because they're just willing to do anything and hurt anybody and all this. And so my biggest job as a writer is to convince the reader that these characters are real, or the way they move through the world and the choices that they make are believable enough. And if I can do that, then the plot can just be fucking nuts, you know? But it's that like root level, molecular level understanding of the characters and why they're doing stuff. And so I just couldn't have them both be like whole pie, you know what I mean? And Duane, given what he's like
Yeah.
experienced and the mistakes he's made, like he's got that trepidation about it, you know, because he's like uh hopefully like learned something, you know what I mean? And he understands that like vengeance isn't going to bring the people that he loves back, but he's in his way this very warped caregiver for this child, and that's what she wants, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
And continuing with Dwayne, also he has a problem with alcohol, with addiction with alcohol, which is something that's been often used as kind of a metaphor with vampirism, like kind of bloodlust. I'm quite curious how you approach that to make sure that it was approached in a different way, because it has been approached in movies and books in many different ways. How did you specifically want to approach it
yeah,
without kind of repeating the same formula?
I don't know. I like writing again about alcoholics. I've certainly had struggles in the past, you know, with various things, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I was surrounded in that life, and it's something that fascinates me an author, you know. Um, and so to me, there was no willful like, this is a brilliant allegory for vampirism. It was just like, this is kind of like a part of who the dude is, you know.
Hmm.
And it's one of those things where once you're learning more about these characters as you're writing them, it's like you can push some of that stuff away, and but it will keep like kind of like calling you know what I mean? And so it's like, all right, I tried to like push that aspect of him away in writing because I've written about alcoholics before in
Hmm.
previous novels, you know, or people who have, you know, issues with substances or drinking or whatever. And it was just like, oh yeah, this is all right. I got to deal with it. This is a part of this character. And I always think it's so corny when people are like, the character called to me and I was forced to do this and I was at his beck and call. But to some degree, yeah, they kind of tell you what they need to, you know, to a degree.
Hmm. And was there any was there any specific relation to that you set the kind of the beginning of the story in this bar, or was that just kind of just happenstance, or was there a specific
You
reason why you
know,
decided to set the thing in a bar from the beginning?
yeah, that was another thing. I wanted to that was another thing that interested me. And so I like did a bunch of like Q&As with like bartenders and shit, you know. And it's like that and the Vietnam thing and the vampire thing and the kind of like adopted, like my kids are adopted and we adopted them many years ago, but it's still like that kind of like pressure as a parent, you know, like
Hmm.
and not like, oh, I'm woefully screwing my children up, like all those kind of things went into that melting pot of
Hmm.
like the stuff that I want to explore.
Hmm. I
So
didn't know your kids are adopted, but I can really understand
yeah,
that now because reading it, it really, I mean, I uh, I just posted on Instagram a short review. It really kind of dives into blood relationships, but also forged relationships that aren't kind of bloodborne, and I kind of really dug into that. So I was going to ask you where that kind of came from, but I'm guessing it's because of you having adopted kids. Now that really kind of helped you to kind of address those two relationships that there are, and how important it is, how Duane felt indebted to kind of do service to do
yeah,
justice to help this girl that he's been forced to take care of.
yeah,
You know.
and at times feeling woefully out of his league. You know what I mean? And I don't
Yeah.
generally feel that way anymore. But when my partner and I adopted two kids, like 3 weeks before COVID shut everything down here in the States,
Oh,
and
really?
it was just, and so they were very young. And so they were like, who the hell are you? And why are we here? And now we can't leave, you know? And, you know, during all of the stay at home stuff, like it was like really challenging. Um, I mean, everybody had a hard time, but it was like, it was a kind of like pressure cooker of tension with just not being able to leave and these kids very traumatized and very confused, you know?
Also, a lot of the time, it is like a kind of a road trip, a story, but at the same time, it also almost felt like I was reading a Western book. It's kind of it
Mhm.
had like hints of true grit, something like that.
That's
Um,
so cool. Yeah.
was that? You guess you say it's so cool. I'm guessing that wasn't a direct, a conscious inspiration, but I really kind of felt like I was reading a Western a lot of the time.
You know, I pitched the book as True Grit with vampires.
Oh, really?
So that's very cool that you yeah, that's cool that you picked that up. Um, and I do think that it's like it scratches that itch of like the very classic hunter be hunted Western thing. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, just run through a different filter. So
Yeah, definitely. And like Dwayne's character, even though I think he's in his late
oh.
20s now, it feels like he could be 60 or 70 reading the book.
You know, and that's one of the things that somebody has meant that has gotten a couple comments, and I might have dropped the ball on it, where people are like, he speaks like somebody older than he is, you know, because the kid he's like in his mid 20s. Uh,
Yeah.
but also, I think that like culturally, the mid 70s, particularly like growing up in the Vietnam War and in that shadow, and just I don't know. I feel like without the kind of social media and internet um, parameters we have now, it's just people I think spoke a little differently and acted a little differently then. I
Yeah,
could
no, no, it
be
wasn't a
way off
criticism. It
base.
was quite the opposite. It's just because he's been through so much. You know, it just felt like he'd lived a whole life rather than just in his
Yeah,
late 20s. You know what I mean?
yeah, and so I hope that that's like um, I hope that comes through, but I also understand if people are like, this kid's like 25 and he's talking like he's some wizened old dude, you know? And it's like, well, he's killed
No,
people too, so, you
yeah,
know.
no, no, no. I didn't remember that. My assumption was that he spoke like that because he's been through so much. You know, he's had to
Yeah,
suffer so
right.
much. You know, he's kind of been through a lot more
Yeah.
than most people at 27, 28 years old. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Totally.
Mhm. Brilliant. Also, you mentioned that kind of you realized that there was parallels in this book, and you wanted to kind of tell a few different stories. And so we do get various perspectives, and we end up even kind of not exactly empathizing, but in a certain way, we do empathize with the antagonist as well, because I don't want to give too much away, but without giving it away, you can understand why he would want to go against the protagonist because of what happens.
Right.
How do you balance something like that so that we empathize with both sides, but we end up empathizing more with who we're supposed to kind of
Yeah,
empathize with the most? Because
right. I mean, that's the fun part, right? Because again, my whole pitch is making sure that these characters are believable. And so if the bad guy is just so bad constantly and just again murders everybody with impunity, um, and is just heartless, then it's just like cartoonish, you know?
yeah,
And so he's got to have some skin in the game too. And so that to me is the one of the coolest challenges of writing fiction is saying, can I make you believe this? You know? And it doesn't really matter about the plot sometimes because my plots are outlandish as hell and ridiculous. And I have one book with like bejeweled unicorn poop in it. You know what I mean? Like that's a
yeah,
focal point in the plot. But if I can make you believe about these characters, everything else will fall into place. And so like he couldn't just be I'm Mr. Evil Vampire, you know?
yeah. How did you? What was it that fell into place all of a sudden with this character? Is like, right, this is kind of the starting point that I can ground this antagonist.
You know, I think a lot of it was like his it's very brief, but his kind of like father's disavowalment of him. It's very brief in there, but he was like kind of left on his own at like 15, you know? And so
Mm-hmm.
in its way, both of these characters are like, and there's a scene where like Duane talks to his father and it's very disaffected and like bland and he can't tell him about any of the shit that's going on, you know? And so it comes down to like to me like parenthood to again, which is such a weird thing because in John Varley's case, it's a very nominal amount of space put into it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's just kind of like getting uh, that need not being met, you know.
Yeah. Hmm. I mean, you talking of John Valley, you do kind of we get his origin story, so we have some flashbacks in there. This is something I asked to a lot of writers because it's typically mostly in films. I usually hate flashbacks because they usually pull me out. I think
Yeah,
it just depends. I mean, there's certain films that work. This works really well. Obviously, we need. I mean, it helps ground John Valley's character, but at the same time, you need to be very careful, especially in a book, because it can be very jarring to go from one chapter and then suddenly jump to the next chapter and it's like 50 years previous or whatever. How do you approach that to make sure that it's kind of believable, grounded, doesn't pull you out of the story at all?
yeah, you know, I think for one, doing 15 edits of a novel, and then I'd say it's just like his, you know, his. I don't want to give his origin story away either, but
Yeah.
like the leap between that and the contemporary part of the story set in the 70s, like technologically, it's not that big of a leap in some ways, and so it's not like you're like they were in, ancient times and now they're on their laptops or whatever. Like it's
Yeah,
not,
yeah.
and it's, some of the flashbacks are set in saloons and we're already in bars to begin with, and so it's like there are touchstones there where it's not that big of a leap.
One thing I love asking writers as well is how involved how involved are they with the artwork of the books? How involved are you in kind of the final version of your books, especially this one now, Coffin Moon?
Yeah, Fever House and The Devil by Name, like previous to those, I had done all my own covers on indie presses, on
Right.
Meerkat Press. And then Fever House and Devil were done by a woman named Ella Latham, who was with Random House, and I want to say she's with Saga now as their art
Mm-hmm.
director. And the new artist that did Coffin Moon is a woman named Arushi Menon, and she just did fantastic. And all I did was like, I did a little like list of like, oh, these colors might be cool, and this image, this image might be cool. And she gave maybe 4 samples, and it was essentially that cover, like right
Yeah.
off the bat. And she just killed it. And I just remember seeing it and just being like, that is it right there.
Wow.
So
Uh-huh.
it was tremendous. Yeah,
That's
she's so
great.
good.
Is that this? I mean, I know that Black Crow Books is releasing a kind of a special edition. How involved are you with that as well? Because that's quite detailed artwork as well. Those are crazy. Those are crazy books that they released. They're brilliant.
Yeah, I am mostly just like they'll ask me occasionally for input on something, but for the most part, I'm just staring agog at what they're doing. Like
They're
there's
just
like four
insane. Yeah.
different special editions of Coffin Moon coming out, and they made like foil covered arcs, and it's crazy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, crazy. Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, just before I let you go, then I think that you, um, it was an interview you did a couple of months ago, 3 months ago. You were saying that you were awaiting a new deal with Random House this summer, which kind of
We'll
depended on
see. Yeah,
kind of
we'll see.
pre-sales. Is that not happened yet? You're still waiting on the
No, I think they're gonna wait until Coffin Moon comes out,
right.
and then I need to submit like a substantial chunk of this new book, and then we'll talk and we'll see what's going on. You know what I mean? So
No, yeah, fingers crossed for that.
yeah, fingers crossed.
But obviously, I mean, you're promoting this, but can you tell us anything about? Oh, fingers crossed. But can you tell us about anything that you are kind of preparing that you would like us to read in the future? Something that you hopefully will get out after this one.
Yeah, the one after this is another crime thing, and it's called Crone, and it will probably come out about this time next year.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. Uh-huh. And then obviously you're going to take this on tour. You're going all over the place. I know that you're doing yeah, I think you're launching in Portland with a Lost Boys screening. Then you're heading to I think you're off to the UK. You're going to be doing something in Edinburgh with Joe Hill, and then you're going to be in the UK in October, November. That's crazy. Can you tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about the whole tour that you'll be doing?
Yeah, we'll be posting it publicly here really soon, and they had to nail down a couple places for sure and like speaking partners and all that, but that's gonna be it. And then there's gonna still be like various events in Portland and in the Pacific Northwest and stuff like that. But for whatever reason, like big tours, not really at the point where I'm doing like huge tours yet. It's just as it's tough to get out there sometimes,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
Got a big demand in the UK though. I know you're over there for a couple of weeks, so yeah, that's great.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
gonna be a blast. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
for sure.
Well, listen, Keith, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your time. Again,
Oh, thank you.
a huge congratulations on the book. It's fantastic, just as the same as your other stuff. And I wish you were the very best of luck with the release. I'm sure it's going to go down really, really well.
Oh
And
man, Howard, thank you so much for having me. I seriously appreciate it. Sorry for all the technical stuff.
no, no, no. I'm sorry, but it's probably my end because I'm in the middle of the desert here in Spain. But listen,
Oh,
thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure to speak to you, and I hope I hope the book goes down really, really well as it did with me because I loved it to bits.
cool, man. Thank you so much. Have a good
All
one.
right.